Live. There we go. Let's just make sure on YouTube. Cool. It works on that side. Cool, about to begin. So it's the Born Free podcast. Today in studio, I'm doing something quite different. We're online with okay. So I'm getting a little lag. Sorry about that. So yeah, it's the Born Free podcast, and today I am in, well, not necessarily in studio. I'm online with the leader of the Dagga Party, marijuana advocate, and am I correct in saying legal professor or academic?
I wouldn't say, yeah, hi, I'm Jeremy Acton. I wouldn't say I'm a legal academic in any way. I'm just an average citizen who got arrested for cannabis possession and then started to try and find the words to fight back and make it a constitutional rights issue in my defense against my charges. And the first arrest happened in 2011. And as the Dagga Party itself was getting registered and coming to the attention of the press, then the arrests picked up because I heard via a grapevine that the local police station was ordered to kind of make it difficult for me to prepare for the next elections. And so I got arrested three times in the Montague district for various types of possession. And I then wrote a plea statement to the Montague Magistrates Courts stating my constitutional point of view. And they gave me, I think it was 6 months to compile some files on and motivate why I should be allowed to make it a constitutional issue. So I did that. I compiled 4 files of the history and the industrial aspects and the medical aspects and my standpoints as to my rights, and then he allowed me to go ahead. And at the same time, the Dagga couple up in Gauteng were being arrested just before me, and I was privileged and able to see their papers for their quest for a stay of prosecution and to summons the state. So I was able to see as a layperson their professionally legally prepared papers. So I took them, I typed them out myself, and then I started editing them into my own words.
Okay.
I used a lot of their words and I used some of my own, and then it just went to the Western Cape High Court, and I was combined with Russ Gareth Prince, who was also arrested during that time, and he also was doing constitutional defense, and we got lumped together, and we won an order which said that it was illegal, or at least unconstitutional, to deny adults the private use and cultivation of cannabis at home.
Okay, Jeremy, sorry to cut you off. I think you've given us so much information, and I was still trying to intro you. Let's just start at the beginning. You are the leader of the Dagga Party. What does that entail? Just explain that to regular individuals. What does the Dagga Party stand for?
Thanks very much. Yeah, sure. So the folks are aware of this legal fight coming on. We can talk about that again. The Dagga Party of South Africa is a political party platform trying to present a new vision for South Africa to young people, especially because it's your future, to decide on. And it's about bringing the cannabis into the national economy so that it is a resource for people to farm and use and value add in a regulated way, so that we maximize the positives and minimize any negatives, because everything's got some positive and negative in it, you see. So and to spread the truth about what cannabis really is and where did this prohibition come from and why this prohibition must be overthrown.
Awesome. So how did you begin on this journey? So you explained about how you were arrested, but just how did you get into cannabis advocacy, and how did you get into forming the Dagga Party?
Okay, it all started with the first joint. Okay. In 1986, 87, I think it was end of 87, I was finishing with my military service and had my first joint, and it made me inward feeling and thoughtful, and I thought it was quite an interesting experience. But then I began to use cannabis while considering it as a power plant, a guide, and a teacher, rather than just smoking to chill. And so I listened to my inner self very carefully during the first 3 to 6 months. I wrote diaries. I kept a dream diary. I learned about cannabis. And then I also saw a lot of the police operations hitting people here and there, and making life difficult for some of my friends, and
Mhm.
this whole issue of the prohibition of cannabis. And then I was also saying, asking myself the question, how do I mitigate harms to my body and myself? How am I damaging myself with this drug? And
Yeah,
the more I researched, the more I realized that all of the propaganda about cannabis is only that. It's propaganda and
yeah,
lies meant to hide the truth about this valuable, health-giving, nutritious plant,
definitely.
and which has a massive history behind it. So yeah, and then I started looking at the history of where did the prohibition come from, and then I got arrested, and that forced me into really defending myself, and that's how I
Okay.
became a cannabis activist. But we're all linked up with the international cannabis movement as well now. We have friends, which is another kind of cannabis family all over the world now.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, for those who are not familiar with the legal position of cannabis, whether it be the cultivation, whether it be the using, the distributing, where are we as South Africa with regards to the cannabis issue?
Okay, the first thing is about awareness about the plant. We've got to overthrow the old ways of understanding the plant, that it's a dangerous drug and it's an undesirable dependence producing substance that must be prosecuted
Yeah.
to so-called protect people from harm. The truth about this plant, if we start from the top of the plant, where the flowers are, those flowers contain what might be called, for some people, the psychoactive substances, but those substances help in regulating our body. They contain cannabinoids, which
Yeah.
helps our body endocannabinoid system to regulate a whole body system. There are seeds in this plant which are nutritious. They give us high protein and a very healthy seed oil for mental health functioning as well as just energy. Um, then the stalks of the plant have the longest and strongest fiber on earth, as well as a high level of cellulose on the inside of the sticks, which can be turned into petrol or plastics, biodegradable containers, paper, construction materials, insulation. So it's a multi-use plant, and all of these resources can be obtained off one grow. You might
Mhm.
emphasize the fiber, or you might emphasize the seed and vary your planting, but you can decide on how you want to grow your cannabis and get as much out of it as possible. So that's what potential it offers to us
As a
as
plant.
people looking as a resource for our sustainable future. And um, I believe we can also center our culture around this plant and the mindset that it promotes. If you're a diligent, loving, caring person and you smoke cannabis and you have
Mhm.
interests, okay. So yeah, and so that's the awareness about the plant is the first thing that must change. We must know the facts about it,
Okay.
and then change our attitude to it, and then decide on how do we take this forward in South Africa. And at the moment, the present situation is yesterday, after a long period of time since 2012, the Dagga couple, as intervening parties, and I, as a plaintiff from the Western Cape, and Ross
Yes.
Gareth Prince, my colleague, finally came to the Constitutional Court on the issue of Dagga for one day. And there were many papers filed in the Western Cape High Court, which gave us that order to smoke at home, which was nationwide. And then the state appealed it and brought it directly to the Constitutional Court instead of the Supreme Court. So that's what we did yesterday. They appealed. They had to furnish the record and carry the costs. We got to speak our final say. And so there's a lot of questions about the way forward based on the Dagga Party case that is halfway finished in North Gauteng. Should the court only just confirm the Western Cape hearing on the privacy, the right to smoke at home, or must it attend to all the other claims that we made? And let me say, we made a lot of claims. For example, the claim to equality in the use of cannabis compared with alcohol and tobacco. So that means that the court has to consider the fact that we can't, it's not about us just smoking at home. We should have the right to carry our cannabis like somebody carries cigarettes. And we should have the right to pack our bong and our stash in a vehicle and go on a camping site just like somebody might pack some 6-pack of beers. Okay, equal rights for all. So that's what we asked for more. So the court may exercise its prerogative to go back to the issues that were ignored and just make one huge judgment on everything. And I must point out that instead of answering my papers, the state asked the judges to throw my papers out because they were vexatious and of prejudice to the state without saying why. And so, but the judges then didn't throw it out, so they got into the constitutional record, but they never used my papers to consider all of my claims. My claims to participate in a culture and gather with other people. It wasn't a case of I could gather with many people and express my culture. I just could only use it at home. And so I'm hoping that the Constitutional Court will take a look at the papers that I gathered and wrote and put together and say, well, this is good enough factual evidence. You may not be the expert, you're just a lay person, but maybe I put the evidence there for them to say, right, this man has a right to equality. The laws can't be more strict than those already in place for alcohol and tobacco, and no under 18 licensed premises, etc.
So, Jeremy, just to clarify, just to summarize that and put it in a small little package that is palatable. Right now, as a South African citizen, I have 2 grams of marijuana in my pocket. What is my position and what is my defense?
Okay, right now, you can still get arrested and appear before a court, a magistrate's court. They might treat you badly and keep you overnight in the holding cells. So be careful, guys. We're in an in-between space between the law as it still is and the law as it shall be.
It's about to change.
Yes, it's going to change, but doesn't mean it's legalized yet. We're still waiting for judgment, you see. So be discreet, but don't let I would say, listen, get on with it as well. Don't let the present law stop you from providing for your own needs, even because you can make your attitude activism and grow discreetly for your own needs. And if the police arrive, then you become an activist by saying, yes, my constitutional rights are pending in the Constitutional Court. You have to stop this prosecution immediately. And they do have to stop that prosecution immediately, pending the outcome of the Constitutional Court. So why not just get going, guys? You know?
So what are we looking at in terms of time frame with regards to this becoming a legality, and what does the legality entail? So possession is something that you've definitely been advocating for. Where are we in terms of the cultivation, in terms of distribution for economic means, in terms of just an economic base for the plant as the psychoactive material in smoking it, in the edibles, as well as the hemp usage in terms of its textile manufacturing and all the other benefits that come with it, the health benefits as well. Where are we with that? As a just outside of just the smoking and just using it recreationally, where do we lie as a country?
The fully legal plant, firstly, we're waiting for the judgment from the Constitutional Court, and they may send it back to the High Court on certain issues to be heard in the Dagga case. For example, if they need more evidence, they might refer it all back to the Dagga case. So when we get a final constitutional decision that the prohibition is unconstitutional and Parliament must fix it, they will be given a time. And so far, the Western Cape order said 2 years after confirmation. That confirmation period hasn't started yet.
Okay.
So expect it to take maybe 3 years before we can say that we've got a bill that's passed by Parliament. But in two years' time, we've got elections. So
yeah, that's
instead of hoping the government is going to get this right for the people and the culture, I'm calling on all the young people of South Africa, all the people who respect cannabis and who respect others who use cannabis and want to be lawful citizens and promote a positive country, to let's do a Dagga Party, One Love vote, be Occupy, be candidates, registered to vote as activists, and let's see if we can clean out the House of the Parliament from the present controlling, it's pretty chaos there. Let's try and put our culture in place. So that's my call.
So that actually leads to my second question. You might have answered it. How does, apart from advocacy, how does one get involved in the cannabis movement? And I say that with respect to the plant and with respect to the legal position as well. Cannabis movement in the sense of getting to know the plant, getting to the benefits, as well as the changes that could occur economically, whether personally or as a collective economy in South Africa. How does one get involved, and what are some of the touch points that one can go to?
Okay, the first touch point is the Dagga Party Facebook page. Please give it a like. You just type in Dagga Party of South Africa, you'll come to our page. Another very key page is the Dagga Couple page. Give that one a like as well. We're all linked up anyway. And then we've got a Cannabis Farmers Union of South Africa page.
Yeah.
So like that one as well. And then see who are also linked to those pages, other pages that are cross-connected to that. So that's the first and quickest way to us. Then also we've got www.daggaparty.org.za. There is an article there, 5 Steps to a Dagga Revolution. And so that's a kind of a step-by-step process in what we actually have to do in forming ward groups, local supporters of legalization, meeting in one ward, across cultural lines as well as religious lines, but centered around the tree, with a view to mobilizing and being responsibly registered to vote for elections 2019 and the Dagga Party platform. But it's not only about getting to Parliament, it's about learning how to work as a group on the ground in the wards, in the suburb, become a new Dagga tribe, care about each other, do business together, make a stokvel together, etc., etc. And that's it. We are on our website going to be having available soon an online sign-up with a form to fill in, which will give us your details. The fee will be 120 Rand a year. That's 10 Rand administration fee per month. For us to send you emails and help you get going in terms of registration. So those are some of the ways to start getting involved. We're only going to now start mobilizing the political aspect of the Dagga Party now that we've done our legal side of things to the Concord.
Awesome. So, Jeremy, I also want to ask you, with regards of marijuana's accessibility in this day and age. This is post the 3-year period that you're talking about. As far as reform, we hope it gets to a point where it is legalized or decriminalized, depending on what's on the table. the accessibility to marijuana, right? So we know, as far as the recreational purposes here, we know that there's an availability through, we can say, irresponsible means, from sellers to dealers, to street hawkers. What is your opinion on how this plant or marijuana as a recreational drug is distributed? What's your position on that?
Well, I think firstly, all recreational use is medically valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it adds up to good health later in your old age. If you're a moderate, responsible cannabis user from the age of, say, 30 onwards, perhaps, depending on your disposition, a mild use of cannabis will give you a statistical health benefit towards your later life. So I think everyone should grow their own medicine to start with, and
Mm-hmm.
take care of the seeds, and be serious about what you're breeding and doing. And then we don't have to have like any kind of permitting system, because if we just registered with a local cooperative structure that includes everyone locally,
Mm-hmm.
that allows that community to regulate itself, and that cooperative structure could then interrelate with corporations who need resources from a local area to value add, or the government relative to taxes and levies and stuff. So people stand together around the tree, they become a business entity, and then they operate in an area and then relate to the state and corporations. It makes the smaller average citizen more powerful by linking them together into localized groups. So that's my proposal as to how it would happen, and then to make it encourage that everybody actually be producers
Mm-hmm.
to get going on creating a sustainable cannabis economy. We've got to grow the wealth if that we want to see, you see.
Yeah.
So the other thing is equity in participation in a cannabis economy means direct access to land on an equitable basis. Everyone needs to participate to grow a hectare of cannabis each to have
Yeah.
equal rights. Means that we all should be having some kind of new kind of land access program to make sure that future young people can go onto a place of land which is ecologically sustainable. Perhaps infrastructure is supported, and then you get going and you become a cannabis farmer along with your other interests, and you generate enough for your sustainable situation, all linked up to the global economy at the same time as well. Obviously not an
Yeah.
isolated farm, but a farm where everybody has green roots and is producing resources for your local cooperative to then value add and give you the money back,
Yeah.
grow the money. Yeah.
Awesome, Jeremy. Also, we're seeing, especially with popular culture, especially with young people now, we're seeing this, I wouldn't say fad, but there is a movement of crossbreeding with regards to the plant itself. So this crossbreeding comes with, obviously, this indoor growth mechanisms that are being used. I'm not well informed in it, but I'm aware of it. Is that something that is part of the movement in terms for advocacy, or do you see that as more of a deterrence?
Well, let's put it where it is. The covertness of the prohibition meant that people grew under lights. And because lights requires expensive energy, they were always breeding for highest possible THC delivery per watt of light. So
Mm-hmm.
that led to fancy strains. But in South Africa, we are blessed with sun, and we don't really need to use ESCOM to grow weed hidden away. But if we're interested in gourmet strains or connoisseur strains,
Gourmet strains, I like that
yeah,
term.
special flavors and stuff, then we might consider a greenhouse technology which uses the sun, but isolates different strains from all the various pollens blowing around. But we're always going to have land race, the original bushweed from the homelands.
Mm-hmm.
That's the resource that we've got to develop by breeding and selecting and promoting it, and teaching people how to breed for larger seeds. and for higher THC and bring in the genes for that. And so that pollen will always be all over South Africa. So those who want special cannabis will have to do it under glass or clear plastic, whereas outside we must just go mega cultivation by all citizens. If you can imagine the Free State farmers, whoever they might be, including cannabis as in their maize crop rotations, just to make them more viable, and all the sticks could go to Sasol and we could make cheaper petrol with the sticks from cannabis.
Yeah. No, I definitely hear you. Now, also, cannabis, marijuana relating to other drugs, right? What is your position in terms of that becoming, how can I say it? I don't want to use the term gateway because I feel like it's very, very childish, but marijuana becoming an open door or an advocacy for the usage of other drugs. Is that something you think will happen? And also, do you advocate for that as well? So other drugs being, whether psychedelics or other Schedule 3 or Schedule 2 drugs like cocaine, heroin, do you foresee something like that happening, or and what's your position on it if it does?
Okay, well, I must first say that the drug war criminalization approach only destroys lives and harms our country. Okay, it promotes a fascist agenda, and we should be moving away from the criminological attitude to drug addiction. And let's look at the addiction user, small-time user person first, and go more from a criminal punishment model through to a human rights-based social medical model. Help them in terms of a placement and accommodation and opportunity for work and some educational input and some counseling input, and say, listen, would you like to go on any kind of program? We accept that you have a problem. We're not going to deny you the substance, but you will be using it under medical supervision.
Okay.
It takes all the fun out of the illicit substance, but the person who really wants that kind of help should be allowed to get it and be treated with respect in a clinic rather than in a prison or police holding cell. But when it comes to the other substances, so we've got to, even for the most damaging substances, we've got to change our attitude in how we treat addiction. We can still be strict in the way it's provided to addicts. We can outgun the black market by making it medically available on prescription, for example, for those who need it. But it's also up to those cultures who use other substances to get it together and claim their own rights to use their own substances. I and my brothers and sisters have done it for cannabis. I really believe that the same papers could be altered to argue for many other positive and the right to use psychedelics, for example. We shouldn't legislate against the right to hallucinate. So I also support the legalization of magic mushrooms, and I'm active in that as well. And there are some indigenous medical herbs that are also banned from the Eastern Cape, for example, Ikambi or Catha edulis, or known as cat to the mirror to the Somalians. That tree is an indigenous tree. It prevents flu, but it's banned.
Yeah.
Okay. So the whole prohibition agenda has been to deny people certain health resources. Cannabis is the primary example of people being denied access to a health resource, so that we have to go and buy all that chemical stuff from the big pharmaceuticals to try and stay healthy.
Yeah, I definitely hear your position on that, and I hear what you're saying. What do you think it is about South Africa that's not catching up with the global position on drugs in general, recreational drugs in general? Because across the oceans, places like Canada, Ecuador, and other places in the States, Colorado, etc., seem to have taken a different position, seem to have experimented with the legalities, and it seemed to have benefited them economically as well. So what do you think it is about
Yes.
our country that's not catching up to the rest of the world? Are we aware? Do you think the people in our leaders per se are aware of what's happening globally with regards to drugs and the position on drugs and legal drugs, not necessarily legal drug and recreational drugs?
Well, our leaders in the Constitutional Court are now totally up to scratch with the truth about cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and what it might mean for South Africa, and what will be the consequences if we don't legalize it. Um, but I think leaders, political leaders, have lots of prejudices about drugs, as you can see from various political parties. You still
Mm-hmm.
got the hardline drug war approach. So yeah, well, things are going to change, I think. I'm hoping the cannabis culture, the supporters of the cannabis culture, will take the Dagga Party to elections 29 and help it make a change. And then obviously, the more power we get there, the more we are free to sign our own legislation on cannabis, and also to sign positive legislation for other drug addict people who are facing this drug war situation. Definitely, drug policy reform is on the cards. So it's up to the young people. What do you
Yeah.
want, guys? Do you want prohibition and jail time and stuff, or do you want to unlock a resource for your future? I really must say, if we don't unlock cannabis, we are facing global economic downturns. Okay, just on the oil issue, we're running out of oil. We need to use cannabis instead.
Awesome, awesome. I'm just gonna ask you some questions that one of our Facebook followers requested that I asked you. It's quite long, so just bear with me. I'm just gonna read it.
Sure.
So it says the recent judgment on the decriminalization of the private use of Dagga stirred up great controversy. If officially approved by the Constitutional Court and Parliament, there will be great legal implications. I believe that everyone will be affected. This is a big deal, a very big deal. So, question one, right? This is by Kawega Azizikali. Um,
Sure.
if the Constitutional Court rules against the current legal standing, what will this mean for the Dagga Party? Will the advocacy for the use of the Dagga continue? So that question obviously is kind of answered in a way
Yes, it
because
will continue, and it will be taken into the political arena.
Mhm. So that is the answer to that.
That's the answer to that. It will continue. And obviously, we're only going to accept laws that we may contract with and agree with as a culture and a people.
Also,
So lobbying in parliament level, if it does get declared unconstitutional, then we
yeah.
will have to lobby at parliament level. But I'm very confident we're going to see massive changes.
Awesome. So, second question, she has three questions. Second question, I understand the economic implications, but what about the social implications? How will it be assured that it doesn't get abused, especially by young people? Will there be restrictions similar to alcohol restrictions? If yes, how can we be assured that these restrictions won't be ineffective like alcohol restrictions?
Okay, let's first understand that cannabis is less harmful than alcohol or tobacco
Mhm.
on a scientific measure.
And that has been proven.
But yes, but let's also say that if you have the laws like the alcohol laws and the tobacco laws, you can't now make cannabis laws more strict than alcohol or tobacco laws,
Mhm.
because we expect equal treatment in law.
Yeah.
So our more less harmful substance should have lighter
Yes.
restrictions. But let's say no under 18s would be a good starting point to agree on.
Okay.
Then others might say, well, if a teen person can decide on their sexual behavior at the age of 16, why can't they smoke a joint afterwards?
Mhm.
And that's for the young people to really think about, like, what is responsible for us, because we are
Yeah.
developing people, and our brains can be altered greatly by what we do wrong or right when we're very
Yeah.
young and growing. There are some kids who might benefit from it for ADHD type kind of
For health
treatment.
purposes, yeah. Psychoactive,
Yes,
psychological
yes,
purposes.
or epilepsy or something. So my proposal is that depending on the culture that you come from and your parents' values, which is where we get our guidance from, I think under parental supervision, a young person should be allowed to experience cannabis from the age of 16 up, and only smoke it at home, or under your own parental supervision.
Okay.
So that there's a cultural tradition passed over of what's right and what's wrong and value systems, etc. After 18, obviously, everyone can drink a beer or do what they like after 18. So let's just say, face facts, guys, it's going to happen. I think we've got to look at how do we introduce young people to responsible considerations of all substances and think carefully about the pathways, because some of these are power plants. We can become shamans with these plants, or we can fall into the gutter with these things. It's up to you, you see. So, and cannabis is not toxic to that we're going to kill people with overdoses. That's impossible. So we can all agree that let's make something out of it, including make something out of ourselves with this. And I think just attitude will reduce the potential for negative abuse and harms.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the last question she had, again, this is Dagga Zikali. Lastly, part of the state's case drew on reports by officials working with victims of drug abuse. None of them recommended the legalization of marijuana, and it was stated that users of marijuana are more likely to use other drugs. Keeping in mind that South Africa is already drug infested with, she lists tick and wonga, etc. What is your view on this? So I think I asked you that question with regards to cannabis and how it relates to other drugs. But if you can just quickly answer that with specifically that intent of the South African, how can I say, market or South African drug users.
Okay, we at the present moment as young people, I see people crammed into ghettos, backyards of backyards, with no opportunity for in an economy that's largely ignoring them. You might get a waitering job, you might a petrol station work, or there are very few opportunities, and these lack of opportunities leads to hopelessness, poverty, the potential for finding substances to alleviate the misery, and you fall into like the other heavy drugs. But we must remember that cannabis can actually upraise us by providing us resources to create employment and sustainable lives with it, and to build houses with it, and make clothes with it, and offer tourism with it, and medical health services with it, and good cooking with it. So so that is why the whole issue of cannabis leading to being a danger to South Africa, I think it will alleviate poverty, and that will bring the other drug use down, because people are happier and wealthier. And also, if a person using heroin, which is munga and nyaope and other mixes, mainly heroin, it's a downer, they just like smoking it with cannabis. Well, don't blame the cannabis. I've never looked at that stuff, and cannabis users don't automatically go to the other substances. And in many rehabs, I really think that those who are trying to get off heroin should be allowed to use cannabis as much as they like in their rehabilitation process, and then later on step off the cannabis or moderate their cannabis. But it really helps through the cold turkey of getting off the opiates, and it should be a part of an intelligent kind of let's say addiction assistance process. But then again, mushrooms in the right mindset, psychedelic mushrooms really helps reset on depression. And it can be taken in micro dose amounts daily, or you take special times out to have a larger amount. But you must be prepared to work with your inner self and be an artistic and positive person, and make something out of the new connections that you make in a psychedelic experience. So I think that many cultures could possibly flower if depending on the substance might be, for good or for bad. It's up to us.
Great insight, Jeremy. Any last words with regards to your the week that you've been having, obviously with the advocacy and the Dagga couple? Is there any information that you think we should know as young people, as far as the plant itself and where we are?
Okay, well, firstly, don't assume that it's legal or anything. Times are changing.
Yep.
But if you're going to be a grower, be discreet and respectful of other people's prejudices, even. Okay, but so that's it. Know that you can ask any prosecution to be temporarily stopped pending this final constitutional court judgment. You can speak that to your magistrate. Never plead guilty, never plead not guilty. Say, if you're in a sticky situation, say you ask for a postponement to consult with legal advice, and then get out of there, and then contact the Dagga Party for further advice on how to resist.
Yeah.
So never pay the fine, rather sit and never pay the fine and get through the magistrate's court and get a postponement and come to us. Time to resist, time to plant. And and the next mission between now and 2 years, I'm walking towards a vision of my country, which features legal cannabis and equity in participation in production and land access for all and renewable energy. And so I'm asking people to take a look at the Dagga Party platform and to register to vote for the legalization process that makes us sign our legislation as a culture. I'm asking for everyone to consider a one love vote as people who support this tree in elections 2019. Yes,
awesome stuff.
That's
awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very
much. I think we've got a lot of insightful information from your hand. Where can people get a hold of you? Yes, you've mentioned the Dagga Party website, but can you just repeat those details? And also, if people want to get a hold of you personally on your social media platforms, can we get those as well?
My social media platform is Facebook, Jeremy David Acton. That's my personal, and people are welcome. I've only got about 800 friends.
You interact a lot on that platform?
That is where I kind of operate to the various Facebook groups that are involved with cannabis. Cannabis is on Facebook. Okay. The Dagga couple Facebook page, do link up there. The Dagga Party Facebook page, link up there. Cannabis Farmers Union of South Africa Facebook page, then you're in.
Awesome.
And then we'll sendings for people can also sign up for a newsletter on the little form at the Dagga Party website.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Have a lovely evening. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. Anytime, Listen.
Awesome.
Go on.